Barbie. It was a very successful film released back in 2023 and was extremely feminist. The theme and messaging was so mismanaged and incoherent that people actually thought it might be making fun of feminism, but no, the film made sure to make its point with a scene where a mother goes on an endless monologue about how hard it is to be a woman. It's a nonsensical rant blaming men for all of women's problems, struggling with the glass ceilings, being forced to look a certain way, being forced to act a certain way, feeling objectified, and always in danger because of, you guessed it, men. It doesn't have any nuance, doesn't really make any solid arguments that apply to the real world, and doesn't take into any consideration of the other side. It likes to pretend that being a man is the easiest thing in the world because the patriarchy. Doesn't acknowledge anything like suicide rates, the male loneliness epidemic, or how almost all the arguments it brings up could be countered with the same thing but from the other side's perspective. For example, women are held to an unrealistic body standard. Well, so are men. We would have to work rigorously, diet, and take steroids to look like what we are supposed to. Another scene meant to criticize men and exemplify how bad it is for women in the real world is the rollerblading scene where Ken and Barbie are both rollerblading down the beach, but Barbie is objectified, catcalled, and even groped by a gross man. People do not act like this in the real world, but Barbie is not an intelligent piece of media that has something worthwhile to say. Instead, it falls into the same category as so much of the modern entertainment that have Mary Sue girl bosses who save the day from evil men or who are so much more competent than the pathetic weak male side characters. We've all seen it time and time again, but what's the point of all this in a Silent Hill F review? Well, it looks like there's quite a difference between critic reception and audience reviews. Many are claiming that this Silent Hill is just woke anti-marriage, man-hating garbage, and that this doesn't belong in the Silent Hill franchise. So, is it just political propaganda? Does it even belong in the Silent Hill franchise? Well, to answer these questions, we will have to dive into the story of Silent Hill F. I'll try to get through this quickly, since I'm sure other channels have done a much better job at documenting and explaining the story. To start, I'll set the stage for where this story takes place. Ebisukuoka is a remote town in Japan during the 1960s, but the religious beliefs of the town are rooted much further back in history. The legend goes that when an 8-headed dragon was slain, one of the heads landed in the mountains near the town of Ebisukuoka and came back to life as a poisonous water dragon that plagued the land for many years. You can find reports of toxic gas leaks from underground water sources, which may be where this belief stemmed from. In the 1100s, the Genpei War broke out between rival clans, the Minamoto clan and the Taira clan. The Taira clan's leader fell ill and died, which led to the victory of the Minamoto clan. The defeated Taira clan warriors fled throughout Japan to find sanctuary. Ebisukuoka was a perfect place for them to hide due to the well-known toxic gas that kept others away. According to legends, the defeated soldiers that fled there vowed to take revenge on the Minamoto clan. They buried the sword of their former leader at the base of a great cedar tree. You find notes describing a time of famine when youths were looking for quick money and to do so were attempting to find the sword. There are claims that the sword was found, but the person who found it was overcome by the Taira clan's resentment and went on a massacre with the sword. It then became known as the Sacred Sword and was believed to harbor a malevolent energy from the Taira clan. Fear of the sword led to people erecting Gizo statues as a barrier. At some time between 1185 and 1333, a transition from the water dragon faith to the divine tree faith happened. The legend is that a monk wearing 3 masks came into town, brought people to the great cedar tree, and told them that the great tree was subduing the water dragon's evil, and that if they devote themselves to the tree, the water dragon will stay dormant until the end of time. So faith in the town shifted to the divine tree faith. Because Ebisukuoka was a remote town with little access to trade, old tools would be brought to the divine tree and offered to the gods, warping the religion. The act of treating old tools with respect or reusing broken, unwanted ones was seen as a virtue and called kishu. This shifted the region into devotion for the divine tree because it was the oldest thing in the region, not because it was subduing the water dragon. And so when lightning struck the divine tree, a new object was decided upon for worship. And that was the next oldest thing in the region, which was the Inari statue. If the sacred sword did exist, it would undermine the local Inari beliefs because it predates the statue. The local religious belief unique to Ebisukuoka shifted to the Inari faith, where they believed that after the divine tree was destroyed, the water dragon attempted to rise again, but a family of foxes traveled far from west to subdue the dragon once again. Their faith bolsters the power of the foxes, but without enough faith, the dragon will awaken once more. The Tsuneki clan took it upon themselves to make offerings to the Inari foxes by sacrificing young women through a ritual. When that proved ineffective, they placed a seal of immense power on the dragon, upon which they built the shrine, Heaven's Benediction, where the head of the family was responsible for keeping the shrine prosperous. And with all that, we're brought back to Ebizuko-oka in the 1960s, where we start the game. We start with 2 flashbacks from our main character, Shimizu Hinako. In the first, we have a first-person view of a young Hinako playing with the doll. We hear her say that the other girls won't play with her because she plays with boys sometimes too. Her older sister then offers to play with her, and we can hear the excitement in Hinako's voice. We then see Hinako saying goodbye to her sister. You can tell that she is sad and restraining her emotion, but she pulls it together and offers her sister a little bell as a gift to remember her by. And then we join the Shimizu household, where we can hear Hinako's father yelling at her and asking her why she can't be more like her older sister Junko.
Hinako! How dare you speak to your parents like that?
Dear, please calm down.
This Junko knows how to show some respect. Why the hell can't you be more like her? Where do you think you're going? We're not done here, young lady.
Darling, please. You've already made your point.
Then why isn't she listening to me? If you hadn't spoiled her so much, she wouldn't act like such a brat all the time.
We are shown that he's obviously drunk, and the mother tries to support Hinako but doesn't really do much to stop the father. Hinako leaves the house to go see her friends in town. If we take a look at the journal, you can tell that Hinako definitely isn't in the best mental state. She describes herself by writing, "There is not a single extraordinary thing about me," also describing her mother as pitiful and not having much nice to say about her father for understandable reasons. Hinako is a young high school student, hence the school uniform, and we are going to go meet her other high school friends in town. And already we are getting hints of something being off. The deserted streets, dead birds, and our friends calling us a traitor out of nowhere.
I'll be there in a bit, okay? See you.
You traitor.
We do make it to the candy shop, and first we meet Shu. This is Hinako's best friend since childhood. The two call each other partner because they played this game they call Space Wars, where they imagined they were soldiers together fighting off an alien invasion. Hinako seems to be a little bit of a tomboy, which led to resentment from other girls growing up. Shu has always treated her as a friend, not just as a girl, and Hinako appreciated that. Shu's family are pharmacists, and so Shu gives Hinako some pills to help her headaches that she has been having lately. These can be used as healing items. Shu tells Hinako that he'll be there for her no matter what she ends up choosing. As a player, we don't really know what choice he's talking about. And then another one of Hinako's friends rolls up, Rinko. She's more of a girly girl, and it becomes pretty obvious that she has a crush on Shu. And then finally, Sakuko shows up. She's a little bit strange and maybe slower to mature than most of her classmates, but a good friend to Hinako nonetheless. And because these are just kids, we know we are in for some light-hearted, childish high school drama.
Hinako. Ah, ごめん。何？裏切りも。
Out of nowhere, the red plants and fog descends on the kids who run and get split up. We make our escape and are introduced to the Kashimashi enemy. At first, we don't have any weapons to fight with, so we will just have to dodge and run away for now. Eventually, we find a staple of the Silent Hill games, a metal pipe, and are able to use it to fight off the enemies. Due to weapons having the durability and eventually breaking, you probably don't want to just go and try to kill every enemy you see. A lot of the time, it's better to just run past enemies. We make our way back to the candy shop to try and reunite with our friends, give Sakugo a proper goodbye, and then a group of enemies interrupts Hinako's grieving, setting her off in a fit of rage, killing all of the enemies and passing out due to a headache. She then wakes up in the dark shrine area, this game's version of the other world that we see in other Silent Hill games. You solve a quick puzzle, and then you are introduced to Fox Mask. He tells you to follow him deeper into the shrine. You don't know if you can trust this guy, but Hinako follows. You find a small knife to use as a weapon, and this is the first time you see your childhood doll in this shrine. It's almost as if it is trying to protect you. And after completing another puzzle while a blind enemy pursues you, you open another set of doors. Fox Mask appears again, telling us that beyond this door only a select few are allowed to tread the sacred ground, and that Hinako is most welcome. He asks if Hinako needs rest before continuing. He seems to care for her and her well-being. Before we can follow Fox Mask much further, something attacks Hinako and knocks her out. Hinako awakens back in Ebizuko-oka and Shu's arms. The two don't know where Rinko is and think she might have made her way back to her own house, so they decide to go check for her there. At this point, it's hard to know who to trust. We don't know at all who the Fox Mask guy is or what his intentions are. We heard Sakuko call Hinako a traitor, and without the context of what he's talking about, a lot of what Shu says comes off as strange. It keeps the player kind of on edge. It doesn't help that every time you're going to follow someone, they disappear. So, we make our way through town towards Rinko's house, passing through some enemy-infested farmland, and finding a doctor's house where you will find records of patients who are becoming fox-possessed after being bit by foxes. We make our way through a mini-boss fight and finally meet back up with Shu in the middle of a field. Memories from Hinako's childhood flood her of when she had gotten lost in the field, and all of a sudden the fog gets much thicker, and we find ourselves lost again in that very same field, only able to find the way through hints from ominous notes Rinko left about Hinako on scarecrows. If you guess the incorrect scarecrow, they come to life and attack you. I thought it was a really neat way to do the puzzle. Once you finally get through that, you and Shu find Rinko at her house. The three of you come up with a plan to get out of town via the mountains since the main bridge is out. From the conversation, you get the sense more and more that Rinko does not want you there. And that feeling is confirmed when it's heavily implied that she pushes you down the stairs. You're knocked out again and awaken in the dark shrine. This time you're exploring the area, attempting to advance through locked areas by finding the keys or objects needed. The sound design does a great job at keeping you scared in this scenario in particular, where you'll be hearing things in rooms that you'll later on be going into, wondering if whatever made the noise is still there, waiting for you. You find plenty of ominous notes and warnings, which will probably have the player more and more skeptical about the Fox Mask. You continue to make your way deeper into the shrine, encountering quite a few enemies this time, and eventually making our way to what we think might be Sakuko. This is the first real boss fight in the game, and this is probably a good time to talk about the combat in the game. You have different weapons that you can find and use. You have a dodge, you have a stamina, and you have a sanity meter. You have a light and heavy attack with each weapon. If you heavy attack an enemy at the precise time, you will parry their attack and hit them for a lot of damage. When you focus, you will use your sanity, but the windows for parries last much longer. If you pull off a parry, you regain some of the sanity, but if you are hit, you lose it. If you lose all your sanity, you are unable to focus and you lose health. Honestly, especially on my first playthrough, I enjoyed the combat. I think one of the biggest weak points of the Silent Hill 2 remake was the boss fights, but because of the combat in Silent Hill F, I actually enjoyed them quite a bit. Yes, it is Souls-like in the sense that you have a dodge and will need to learn enemy attacks, but that can be applied to like any game. Silent Hill 2 is Souls-like then too. I found the boss fights challenging but also rewarding and fun to beat. I think a big plus for the game, and a good reason for the combat to be what it is. Once you damage the monster enough, it is about to attack you, but Fox Max dives to your rescue, shielding you from the attacks and banishing it. He leads you further into the shrine, but before you can enter sacred ground, you must be cleansed. So, he cleans himself, but when it's Hinako's turn to perform the ritual, the water turns to lava, and Hinako sees her childhood doll telling her not to trust the Fox Mask. Overwhelmed, Hinako passes out, and we awaken back in Rinko's house at the bottom of the steps, with Shu coming to our aid. Rinko continues to act strange, and Hinako brushes it off as she might have just fallen. The plan is to now head to Shu's place near where their escape route will be. So, you head back through the town, and have to change plans when the trio realize there are too many monsters blocking their path. They decide to head to take a different route to get to Shu's and agree to take the path that will go through their old middle school. Of course, right when you turn to follow Shu and Rinko, they've disappeared. So you head on your own towards the middle school. On the way, you'll encounter this new enemy. It's fast, threatening, and pretty scary to deal with. It walks on all fours, whines like a dog when you kill it, and its grab attack on you will have it grabbing you and licking your face or even sticking its tongue down your throat if it kills you. And reading the journal entry for this enemy, one of the main themes of Hinako's struggle has started to become pretty apparent. She is struggling with the loss of her childhood and the issues she is experiencing with coming of age. As she gets older, she is expected to act a certain feminine way that doesn't really suit her, and she's ostracized by the others for it. She expresses a longing for the way things were when she could just play Space Wars with her friend Shu, not wanting to deal with the drama or jealousy of Rinko, the guilt of maturing faster and leaving her friend Sakugo behind, or the feeling of objectification from the boys or men who are just trying to hook up with her, represented by this dog-like enemy. You'll find plenty of things like notes or posters bringing up how women should be soft, loyal, and obedient. Hinako doesn't like being told what to do, even admitting it in her own journal that her stubbornness has led to her making the wrong choices at times, but at least it was her choice and not someone else's. You make it out of the town, but before getting to the middle school, you catch up to Rinko and Shu and overhear their conversation.
Cut it out. I don't want to talk about that right now.
I'm not gonna cut it out. I'm gonna keep bringing it up until you snap back to reality.
I said, knock it off. Seriously.
Look, I'll just come right out and say it. Hinako's dead, okay? She's gone. She's living a better life in another world.
Oh. Partner, what took you so long? Come on, let's get going.
A locked gate blocks their path to Shu's house, so they decide to go into the school and look for the key. They stop in a classroom to rest and recover for a little, Rinko whining that she needs to take a break. Shu offers to let the girls rest while he goes and looks for the key, but Rinko refuses, grabbing Shu and begging him to stay by her side. Before Shu can say no, Hinako interjects, offering to go look herself so that the two of them can rest. It's now up to Hinako on her own to explore the middle school and find the key so they can progress. You'll find yourself looking for different keys and locker combinations throughout all of the classrooms and hallways of the school. While exploring, you'll find little origami animals with notes written on the insides. The students were playing a sort of game where if they had grievances or issues, they would write it in, fold it into origami, and then hide it somewhere. If someone finds it and reads it, the grievance will be put to rest. The kids started using it as a way to bully whoever they didn't like. As you first search the school, the hallways and classrooms are empty and normal, but as you progress more and more, enemies start to populate the halls and growth starts to infest everywhere. It was one of my favorite places to explore in the game, as you slowly learn more and more about Hinako's and her friends' time here, and piece together the puzzle that allows you to unlock locker combinations in the locker rooms. The atmosphere is creepy, the sound design keeps you wondering if there are enemies in the other rooms, and making progress felt rewarding. As you explore, you'll find origami left by Rinko, where she writes very negatively about a girl who is obviously meant to be Hinako. To get to the second floor of the school, you'll need to navigate through the outside playground area of the school, which is pretty dangerous due to the lack of visibility and plenty of monsters to chase you. Back inside, there are now some of the scarecrow enemies in the halls. I enjoyed how these kept you tense, never knowing which enemies would come back to life and attack. We find our way into our old classroom where we find a puzzle box that we have to unlock, with each unlock showing us letters that Rinko wrote for Shu, and the final giving us a generic key for the second floor classrooms. Once we go to leave the classroom, we can hear Junko, Hinako's older sister, on the outside of the classroom. She tells Hinako that friends don't last forever, and it's up for her to decide how much they really are worth. Before Hinako is able to open the door to reach Junko on the other side, Junko is gone. It's at this point we see a new entry in the journal from Hinako on her time at the middle school, describing it as a grotesque period of transformation and lamenting how girls and boys are supposed to be treating each other differently now. We're able to explore a couple more of the classrooms now, and it's here where we'll find a note explaining that one of the girls from the track team found the key to the key box, and it's likely in her locker. The key for the gate outside blocking our path to shoes is in that key box. We also find another key giving us access to another part of the school where we will find plenty of letters and notes between students that give us clues how to solve the puzzle of the different locker combinations. It was kind of an interesting puzzle. The students at the school developed a code using numbers that kind of look like letters, so a 3 is a B and a 5 is an S, etc. Use the hints about the owners of the lockers to be able to figure out the combinations. I enjoyed the puzzles in this game. I played with the Lost in the Fog puzzle difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty, and I think they did a pretty good job with them for the most part. I never liked when games just give you the code to something on a note somewhere else. It always feels lazy, or when the solution doesn't seem like it would be plausible. Like no one at a job is going to leave a note for their coworker saying, "Oh hey, if you forget the code, it's the date circled on the calendar on the wall." To get the solution to an optional locker combination, you have to find enough notes to understand the student's code, find the note from a boy who figured out this girl's locker combo, and decipher what it is from the boy expressing concern over it sounding like a cry for help. The code is 505, corresponding to SOS. The player had to explore to find the notes, decipher the code, and put together the cry for help. And it all felt like a girl in the school would plausibly have that locker code. We get the key from the key box and head back to Shu and Rinko. They convince Hinako to rest for a while, so she falls asleep and wakes up back in the dark shrine. The fox mask is there, encouraging Hinako and telling her she's doing great to have got this far, and urges her to keep going onward. It seems that Hinako is almost in a hypnotized state now after the fox mask touched her head, as we can see from her new journal entry on the fox mask on how she can happily keep her head down, not think, and just let the fox mask guide her. Hinako reaches another locked door with a fox on each side of the door missing an item. Each fox has a button underneath it which opens an adjacent hallway when pressed. Each hallway leads into a sort of trial based on her friends. First up is Sakuko. In this area, you'll need to find your way through a maze of corridors that are locked and opened via switches. Doors are marked with different colored insignia, and switches will open doors corresponding to one of those insignia while closing all doors corresponding to the other insignia. You'll need to find the right switches in order to progress. It sounds kind of daunting, but the level is designed in such a way that it leads you to the correct switch pretty obviously. While in the Dark Shrine world, enemies respawn after a little while. However, this level introduces a new mechanic where if enemies are in the blue lights that are placed in some of the rooms, when you kill them, they won't respawn. While exploring this area, you'll find notes about Sakuko, with one of the earliest describing her mother apologizing to a teacher about an incident where Sakuko freaked out on a field trip when the students were going to sleep and the lights were turned off because Sakuko has a fear of the dark. The mother describes how she has given her a stern talking to for this behavior. As you fight through enemies and make your way through this maze, you'll find diary entries from Sakuko, with many of the entries starting with calm writing and then later on suddenly turning erratic with much darker content. A result of Sakuko's possible developmental issues or maybe hinting at bipolar behavior. As an example, you find a note where Sakuko is nervous for an upcoming long-distance race in gym class at school. She thinks it's just an excuse for everyone to be able to laugh at her as she comes in last. She asks Rinko and Hinako to stay slow with her and finish at the same time. Rinko agrees, but Hinako doesn't because she'll get in trouble for going slow as she's on a sports club. The writing turns erratic and Sakuko doubts Hinako is telling the truth, hoping that Hinako trips and falls and breaks all the bones in her body. In another note, we can see an explanation for why she hates the dark so much. It seems Sakuko can tell she's a little developmentally behind, and so she fears being left behind and alone by all her peers. In this note, she laments being the weird one and describes how the dark makes her feel alone. She then goes on to write erratically how she believes Hinako is a fake friend who thinks she is weird but pretends to be nice. Other notes you find confirm that because of this insecurity, Sakuko asked Hinako to promise that she would never leave her behind, which Hinako does. When you finally make it to the end of the maze, you enter a room with Sakuko locked in a cage. After completing a puzzle, you'll receive 2 items that you will use to place over the lights and extinguish them. You place them as Sakuko begs you to stop, getting more and more afraid of the darkness. After extinguishing the light, Hinako turns, exits the room, and as she breaks her promise to never leave Sakuko behind, we can hear the screams of Sakuko experiencing a fatal panic turned heart attack.
Hinako! Hinako, help me! together, you traitor!
Having successfully completed the Sakuko's trial, you'll head back to the locked door, push the button under the other fox, and head to the next trial. This time, it's Rinko. You'll find yourself in a room where you can see Rinko in a box suspended over lava. Again, there are the doors and switches with different color insignia that you'll need to maneuver in order to reach 3 different rooms while avoiding enemies. Each of the rooms corresponding to a different place with significance to Rinko, their middle school classroom, the candy store, and her bedroom. While exploring these, you'll find diary entries from Rinko where you'll see she has a clear superiority complex. She describes how she likes being the class president not because she likes to be a good leader and wants to help her class, but because she believes she is better than all of them and loves the idea of them begging for her friendship and guidance. She feels the same way about being friends with Sakuko and Hinako. Each of the rooms has a lamp that when you interact with it, it will change the room to a more creepy aesthetic and sometimes spawn enemies. My favorite of these rooms was her bedroom, where you'll find notes about her love for Shu and jealousy of Hinako. When you interact with the dolls in a room, they'll turn and reveal a distorted, messed up doll, and the room will change. At first with more and more pictures of Shu, and then pictures threatening Hinako. I've always been a fan of environmental storytelling and environments changing in games, and I thought this was a neat way to do it. Once you've completed all of these rooms, you'll return to Rinko and insert the 3 medallions you found in the rooms into the mechanism in front of her. As Rinko demands, Hinako gets on her knees and begs for her forgiveness. Her cage is dropped into the lava and she is consumed by the fiery lava, just like she had been consumed by her jealousy and fiery rage. This will allow you to unlock the door to the final trial, Shu. You walk into a corridor and can see some of Shu's prized possessions on podiums as you can hear Shu, who sounds like he is struggling to breathe. As you look at the prized possessions, Shu explains each one, always staying supportive of Hinako. On a piece of fine paper in this room, you'll find instructions to carry not any memory of what has come to pass beyond this point. If it wasn't already clear, it becomes pretty clear now that Hinako is letting go of her past, severing connections with her old friends in order to continue following Fox Mask. You'll have to go explore some hallways and corridors to find the 3 missing prized possessions. The first you find is a drawing of Hinako that Shu drew in elementary school. You'll then make your way into a little arena where you're introduced to a new enemy mini-boss. This creature is an amalgamation of what seems to be the male part of the duo, carrying the female on his back, with the female being there to throw up projectiles at you and birth out cocoons. If you don't kill the cocoons quickly enough, they'll hatch into another enemy, so it's good to take those out quickly and not have to be fighting against a crowd. The design of this monster is indicative of Hinako's perspective on marriage. You can find a note describing how Hinako once visited her sister while she was pregnant. She was experiencing very bad morning sickness and looked as if she had aged decades since she last saw her. This is a neat mini-boss, or at least it is the first time you find it, and after defeating it, you will find the ray gun. Continuing on, you'll find a comic book, and now with all 3 prized possessions in hand, you return them to this pedestal and Shu comments on each of them. If you notice, each of the prized possessions that you pick up have markings on them that degrade Hinako, but whenever Shu talks to Hinako, it's always positive and supportive. You may question if Rinko and Sakuko really had those feelings toward Hinako, or if it was something she made up in her head due to insecurity or to help her have an easier time leaving them behind. Or maybe a mix. The door opens, and in the next room you find Shu strung up, struggling to tell her that he will respect her choice whatever the outcome. Hinako pulls the lever, dropping Shu down and leaving him behind as he suffocates. Foxmask comes to comfort Hinako as she apologizes for what he just saw. He reassures her and recommends they keep moving forward. We then wake up back at the school, but Shu and Rinko are nowhere to be found. Hinako seems a little upset that Shu seems to have left her behind. Hinako decides to continue with the plan to meet at Shu's place, so she starts heading there and gets chased into the mountains by the fog monster once again before narrowly escaping. You make your way through the mountain, which is kind of a little bit like a maze, where you'll be making your way through a lot of enemies. Here, and in some of the earlier parts of the game, you'll find notes describing a plant that has been used by locals for medicine. Reports of people using it and entering a meditative state where they encounter another version of themselves. with people reporting to have met multiple versions of themselves as they continue to go down this drug-induced rabbit hole. She gets chased by the fog monster again, but a torii gate blocks it from entering the sacred space that she is now in. If you continue up these steps, you find the divine tree, and just a little bit beyond this, we find Shu's house. In the back shed, we find a note from Shu describing how he was going to use the previously mentioned flower to make medicine to help Hinako with her headaches, and hope that its effect of inner reflection by meeting another version of herself will make her come to the decision of not getting married. These were the pills that Shu gave us in the beginning of the game, and the ones we have likely been taking to heal throughout this playthrough. The pond right by Shu's house has plenty of these plants with the white flowers, and this is where we get a connection to the other Silent Hill games. White Claudia was a plant that is said to grow around Toluca Lake in Silent Hill, and was used in religious practices of cults in the area. When we take a look at one of Hinako's previous journal entries, she says that there exist two Hinakos inside of her, Shimizu Hinako, who she has been since birth, and then Hinako, an alien that is trying to steal her body from the old her. At this point, it is starting to become pretty clear that Hinako is suffering from the hallucinogenic effects of the drugs, battling internally with this other version of herself. This other version is the one who will leave all of her old life behind, her agency, her friends, and her youth, and get married to a well-off man from the Fox clan. While the old Shimizu Hinako wants to keep her old life, her friends, and doesn't want to be forced to become a docile housewife. Hinako enters the house and hears a knock at the door. She answers thinking it's Shu, but it is the fog demon who grabs her and knocks her out by throwing her to the ground. We are then back in the dark shrine. Hinako is holding the hand of Foxmask descending down some stairs. Foxmask warns Hinako that the path ahead is of great pain and suffering, and there will be 3 rituals. The doll warns Hinako to run, and that there's no going back after this point, but Hinako continues on. You follow Foxmask through a little bit of a maze area that will lead you into different combat areas. After you defeat the enemies, you make it to the ritual room where some disturbing rituals take place. So yeah, you have a fox arm now. Hinako cutting ties with a part of herself and replacing it with something from the Fox clan, and this actually starts to change up the combat in the Dark Shrine. You use the arm as a weapon. Like the other weapons, it has a light and heavy attack, and an attack you can perform once the focus meter has filled. This arm makes you a bit more powerful, and it's easier to take down enemies, but the game starts to throw more enemies at you. And yeah, that's not always a good thing. I enjoy the combat in this game, but I did not enjoy every encounter. After you get your arm, you have to fight the pregnant monster thing again, and this is just the first of the many repeat times you will see this thing. It just gets so annoying to fight, handling the multiple enemies while trying to kill the fetus cocoons before they hatch, more enemies along with a throw-up attack from the monster itself. It's just so annoying. I cannot stand the throw-up attack. It felt like it unfairly locked onto you and would just stagger you as you were trying to attack other things, and I got hit with it so many times because they make you fight this thing so many times. It just got annoying to deal with, and I dreaded every time I started to see the cocoons in the game because it signals another fight with one of these things. But anyways, you defeat that group of enemies and then make your way into the ritual room once again, and this time you get a seal on your back. Hinako seems to be more willing to go through these as she refuses the thing you put in your mouth and bite down on for pain. With this, you unlock the ability to awaken. You can use Soul Siphon on downed enemies now. This makes it so they won't reanimate while in the Dark Shrine, and also fills your awaken meter. When you use this, you have a time Super Saiyan mode where your attacks are stronger and bigger and you can't take damage. It makes dealing with hordes of crowds much easier. You fight through another area of monsters with a new mini-boss that controls the doll enemies and coordinates them attacking you. This guy felt pretty similar to the other big mini-boss you have seen before, just with more emphasis on crowd control. I thought he was kind of underwhelming. Once you beat that encounter, you are back to the ritual room for the third and final ritual, which again is pretty gruesome. With Hinako's face gone and replaced by the Fox Clan mask, the 3 trials are complete. Her identity and past have been left behind, replaced with what it was chosen for her by the Fox clan, and she seems happy about it. With the Fox mask, there are certain walls in the dark shrine that she can now traverse through once you focus on them. Hinako then rejoins Fox Mask and enters a long hallway filled with spectators from the Fox clan, and one with a bird mask, who we will see again later. As they reach the altar and bow before a priest, the doll reminds Hinako of her family and name, and a boss fight against a manifestation of Rinko ensues. In this fight, Rinko summons little versions of herself that will come attack you if you let them get hit by a fire attack. You take them out, soul siphon them, and that allows you to go into your bestial form in order to get big damage on Rinko. After the fight, Hinako suffers from a migraine as she is confused between being Shimazu Hinako or just Hinako. But Fox Mask ensures her she is Hinako, and she is back in the trance-like state. She passes out again, and we are back at Shu's house. The phone rings inside. Hinako answers and can hear her mother asking her to come home, and then Shu screaming. A masked figure appears at the end of the hallway, the bird mask that we saw earlier. It is Junko, Hinako's older sister that we saw at the beginning of the game, but she doesn't seem the same. She creepily warns Hinako that she must decide her future, and the decision is hers, but to remember that she is running out of time to choose. And then she vanishes. Hinako decides to make her way home to save Shu. A new journal entry about Hinako appears where she describes how she hates when others try to make decisions for her, but she acknowledges that she wants to learn to listen to what others have to say. She realizes she needs to face this inner turmoil in herself and not keep running away from it. She wants to be able to have the time to think through things and make decisions on her own. We also see the same sentiment from Hinako in the entry she writes about her sister, saying her sister told her the quickest way to find happiness was to live the way society expects you to, but Hinako wants to discover her own way to find happiness. So we set off back through an enemy-infested town to get to Hinako's house. On the way we see a playground untouched by the rot. A memory plays out in front of Hinako from when she was a young child, comforting a boy who had been bit by a fox, and then defending the fox, saying it was only scared. After fighting the pregnant thing again, you'll find your way through plenty of enemies and finally make it back to Hinako's home. As she enters, the halls stretch and distort, alluding to how her home no longer feels recognizable or like her home. You get a strange phone call and then begin to explore the house with the main goal of unlocking the door to Hinako's room. One of the puzzles Hinako finds is a picture of her friends, her parents, and herself with her face marked out. There's a spot on the wall for a missing picture that you need to find. In Hinako's parents' room, you find a note near a bunch of empty bottles of alcohol. You find a certificate of full payment stating that her father had paid off his debt. As you continue exploring, you'll find a calendar at the end of the hallway with another locked, ominous-looking red door. If you place that calendar on the wall near Hinako's room, a light in a doorway will flicker on, indicating that that door is now open. Going through that door leads you back to the entrance of Hinako's home. It's the same home, but things are slightly different. Some different pathways and rooms are available to explore, and upon doing so, you'll find that there are now enemies in the home. In this version of the home, you'll find the picture of Hinako that was missing from the wall puzzle earlier, and we find a memory from Hinako where the father yells at the mother for making a bad soup. Hinako stands up to the father and questions why her mother puts up with this, but the mother tells Hinako to stop and not to talk to her father that way, sending her off to school. After the memory plays out, we find another calendar. I assume the dates lined up with significant dramatic dates from Hinako's past. In Hinako's room, in this version of the house, we can find correspondence from a man to Hinako telling her she would not be tied down by her younger self and thanking her for a flower that she had sent him. Progressing on, we find this again. Exploring more, we find a scale puzzle that, upon completion, gives us another piece to unlocking Hinako's room and a jump scare. We can place the calendar on the wall and progress to the third version of the home. It seems we are going through Hinako's past experiences while she lived in this home, and so when you stumble upon a bloody bath, I took it to mean that Hinako may have had some suicidal thoughts in the past. You also can find this room here, which I don't think is much more than a reference to Silent Hill 4. In Hinako's room, we find a bloody block of wax with a key, and can again find correspondence from Foxmask telling her it's natural to basically spread her wings and leave the nest. We head through the door near the calendar again, and are transported back to the first version of the home that we started in, but now with an eerie fog. Now that we have the missing picture of Hinako, we can head back to the room with the picture puzzle from earlier, where the ceiling has been replaced with an orange water. I thought this may be alluding to the suffocating or drowning feeling Hinako was experiencing from what she had been going through. Placing Hinako's picture on the wall and rotating hers upside down while everyone else is right side up completes the puzzle, giving you another plate needed to unlock Hinako's door. You use some tubing you found earlier to light a stove and melt the key out of the wax, and then need to return to the second version of the house to go find the door this key unlocks. In this room, there's another traumatic memory from Hinako's past. Here we learn that Hinako's father lost a large sum of money being tricked by someone he had thought he could trust, and the family is struggling because of it. Hinako yells at her father, demanding he apologize, and due to his rage, he throws a large knife at her, almost hitting her. After that memory plays out, you find the final plate needed to unlock Hinako's door back at the first version of the house. To open this door, you need to solve the puzzle. The hint for which describes the bird and the fox fighting endlessly. It becomes apparent at this point that this version of Hinako is the bird, and that the other version of Hinako that wants to join the Fox clan is the fox. In Hinako's room, we find the pine tree emblem and another memory where Hinako is telling her mother not to let Shu in as she hides correspondence from Fox Mask. As we go to leave the room, the memory of Hinako materializes into another version of Hinako. She says she is also Hinako and that they need to fight each other to the death, and that she can run, but she'll just kill Hinako, her parents, her friends. And then the other version is gone. So we can make our way to the last locked door, and this leads us to the bodies of our three friends hanging. In the next room, we finally meet Hinako's parents.
Hinako! You are late! Finally! We're about to get started here! What did you say? Okay then. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to witness a master with a blade! Yo! Can't disrespect me!
Her parents transform into monsters, and a boss fight against them starts. It's pretty rough fighting two enemies at once, so I found it best to focus on the mom first and then take out the dad. Once you defeat them, they go outside, back into their normal form, and are met by a large monster who slays her parents right in front of her. The sight is too much to bear, and we are back in the dark shrine. Fox Mask comforts Hinako and gives her bowls of something to drink that bring her back to strength. Once we are back in control of Hinako, we can take a look at some new journal entries where we discover that Hinako's father had been a fisherman who saved up enough to eventually open his own restaurant. It didn't work out and they had to close the restaurant. Depressed, he turned to alcohol and started accumulating more debt. She also writes that if everything works out, they're going to give her father a lot of money. She says her father is selling her to pay back his debts. Continuing on in the Dark Shrine, we find another puzzle where we'll need to explore and find 3 items to solve the puzzle with. While exploring and fighting through enemies, you find notes scattered about the place from people associated with the Fox clan. A note from the family physicians tells us that the head family is all falling sick and dying, basically leaving room for a new heir to take power. We learn of a housemaid excited to begin working for the Tsuneki family, the Fox clan, because of how wealthy and powerful they are. The maid has an affair with one of the Tsuneki guys, gets pregnant, and is cast out as the Tsuneki is set to get married. Years later, when the Tsuneki family gets sick and dies, the maid reveals to her son that his father was a Tsuneki and that this boy is next in line. We can infer that this boy turned out to be Fox Mask. Oh yeah, we fight this pregnant thing again, by the way. When we find the third and last of the puzzle pieces we need, Junko appears, warning Hinako that she needs to kill her other self off, the one still holding on to the past, and threatens that if she doesn't, Junko will do it herself to save face. We go on to solve the puzzle, which takes us to a ceremony room where Hinako and Fox Mask perform some sort of ritual with rings. If it wasn't already obvious, at this point it becomes pretty clear what's going on. Hinako grew up in a broken home with a depressed, drunk father and an enabling mother, struggling with debt. Her father took the opportunity to sell Hinako to the Fox clan to be married to the Fox Mask in order to pay off his debts. Hinako is still given a decision of whether or not she'll go through with it, and this is the fight that we saw in the very beginning of the game with her parents. Hinako has been struggling with if she should stay herself with her friends and life in Ebizuko-oka, or be thrown into womanhood, forget the life she has now, and become a subservient wife to the Fox Mask and live a very comfortable life. This inner turmoil had led to her stress headaches, and then taking the pills led to experiencing a feeling of having multiple versions of herself living inside of her. One Shimizu Hinako, the one she's been since birth, and the one that does not want to go with the Fox clan, and then the other, Hinako, the one who chooses to go marry Fox Mask. The Hinako in the Dark Shrine has been completing the wedding rituals to marry Fox Mask. Anyways, we hear the vine boom sound effect. The doors open, and Fox Mask tells us this is the final rite. We are then back with Shimizu Hinako, who decides she's going to chase down the fog monster that just slaughtered her parents. So we'll have to chase the monster down all the way back into town, fighting off a lot of enemies along the way. Oh yeah, and we encounter the pregnant enemy not once, not twice, but 3 more times on our way into town, and have to fight it. Once we finally make it back to the candy shop, we are finally confronted by the fog monster. The monster grabs Hinako, holding her up by the neck. Junko comes out and demands the monster kill Hinako. Hinako fights through the tears, asking her older sister why, and then the monster snaps her neck. Back in the Dark Shrine, Hinako and Fox Mask complete the wedding ritual, and just as they do so, Hinako begins to be consumed by the rot. She rises up out of it, transformed into the faceless fog monster that has been chasing us the whole game. Now, Fox's version of Hinako is in Ebizuko-oka, and she is heading back to the Shimizu residence to confront her parents. You fight through hordes of enemies and finally make it back home. The father begins to weep, obviously ashamed of what he's done, but tells Hinako this is no longer her home. Hinako transforms into the fog monster and kills her parents. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It would really help me out. Alright, back to it. The normal version of Hinako then wakes up in the Dark Shrine. She sees the doll asking her to help Shimizu Hinako and takes off down the path deeper into the shrine. After fighting through a couple of arenas with enemies, she makes her way all the way to the wedding shrine. Junko confronts her and Hinako freaks out and begins taking a bunch of the pills, fights Junko off, and then destroys the wedding shrine. The fog monster then appears, and it's time for the final boss fight against the fog monster. This boss fight mostly consists of figuring out when you can get those perfect dodges against the attacks, attacking when you can, and then managing your stamina so you're able to get away when the red tendrils come up and try to grab you. You eventually defeat the fog monster, and Hinako is back in the Dark Shrine, losing her grasp pretty badly. You then try to run away as you are teleported from different areas in the game, running away from enemies everywhere as Hinako begs for everyone to just stop. You eventually see the light at the end of the tunnel, and as you run to get there, the pills everywhere become more and more apparent. And then you finally reach the door. And after the credits roll, we get another scene.
Yonikawa 2 to HQ. We've got 2 male victims here. Same female suspect as in the wedding massacre on Route 8. One victim is currently in cardiac arrest.
Kagrocho 1 to HQ. We haven't found the knife used by the suspect at the scene. Chances are good that it's still in the suspect's possession. Better consider her armed. Over.
Attention all apartments. This is HQ. Female suspect is in her 20s and wearing a wedding dress. Height is a little over 160 centimeters. Last seen fleeing Tsuneyoshi Shrine. Believed to be armed and highly dangerous. Exercise extreme caution.
Come in, HQ. This is Kagrocho 1. It appears the suspect was observed consuming red and white capsules at the scene of the crime.
Kaguracho 1, this is HQ. Did the capsules match the ones discovered at the wedding venue? Over.
HQ, this is Kagrocho 1. Affirmative. Collecting capsules at the suspect property.
So yeah, that was the worst ending you can get, and I think the only ending you can get on the first playthrough. Hinako snapped on the wedding day and massacred some people, so a pretty depressing end to a pretty depressing story. But that's not really where it ends. Once you beat the game, you unlock New Game Plus, where you'll be able to unlock the rest of the 4 endings. In New Game Plus, some of the cutscenes will be different. You skip the 3 rituals and section leading up to it in the Frog Shrine, thankfully skipping a lot of those combat scenarios, and the solutions to puzzles will change. I think it is most noticeable in the part of the game where you return to Hinako's home, and, of course, the end, where the endings you get will determine which boss fight you will have. To get any of the other endings, you cannot take a single pill during the playthrough. For my second playthrough, I got the Fox Wets Its Tail ending. To get this ending, you have to find the Sacred Sword. In order to do this, you need to find the 5 Jizo statues around town throughout the game and find the offering needed for each statue. Once you do, you can find the sword at the base of the Divine Tree. In this playthrough, you will be confronted by a version of Hinako that doubts if she has ever felt love. During this ending ceremony, we see the doll has attached itself to Hinako. Hinako fights the fog monster, but this time, Foxmask steps in and blocks Hinako, demanding that whatever is influencing her to act this way shows itself, and the doll shows itself. Shu comes to the rescue, and the Foxmask reveals its true form, a big red fox. As Hinako fights it, more and more of its red comes off, and as they fight, they argue. Upon defeat, all of the red on Fox is gone, and he reflects, realizing that maybe forcing a marriage with someone who is unsure about loving you isn't the best idea. The Fox promises to handle things on his end and allows Shu and Hinako to leave with each other. Personally, this was my favorite ending. I don't find the true ending all that satisfying, but we'll get to that. The other ending that isn't the true ending is Fox's wedding. To get this ending, you need to find a special medicine in the Dark Shrine and either not find the Sacred Sword or purify it. This medicine was an ancient medicine for cleansing the most evil spirits out of your body. In her home, in this ending, she is confronted by a Hinako who convinces her to accept the wedding and that fighting for her ideals will only lead to despair. In this ending, you may realize that the doll is actually the Sumo Mukami god attempting to ruin the plans of the Inari clan. In this ending, Hinako becomes possessed at the wedding ceremony, only for the Fox version of Hinako to appear, take the medicine, and cast away the doubtful possessed Hinako. Shu appears and professes his love, and admits the pills he gave her were to help her self-reflection, but are also extremely dangerous. The god appears with the 3 masks, if you remember from the legends from the town earlier, and Hinako fights the god, defeating it and releasing Shu from its grasp. The 3 come to terms with what is happening, but then it ends pretty dark in the next scene when we see Hinako and Foxmask together before walking into the wedding, but as the camera pans down and we hear Hinako's voice screaming that she's scared and doesn't want to turn out like her mother, we finally see that it was Hinako's face peeled off on the ground, making these cries. And then, for the true ending, Ebisukuoka and Silence. To get this ending, you need to find the sword, cleanse it by solving a puzzle in the shrine, and then dipping the sword in a bath near Shu's house, and Hinako must offer a brooch from the Foxmask to a statue. In her house, she will be confronted by her mom, who explains the true story of what happened with her father. His best friend, who he saw as a brother, stole all of his money and ran off, and that her father is very different when it's just the 2 of them. She sees a memory of her father apologizing to her deeply for his action, but the unsure version of herself refusing to accept the apology. She steps in and tells her to hear him out. Even if they never truly forgive him, he is still family. He says that the fox mask can give her a great life, but that he also thinks she would be happy with Shu, and emphasizes that he wants her to decide and to be happy. At the wedding ceremony, she tells her sister that something is wrong here and outside forces are always pressuring them to make decisions. She apologizes to her family for being a bad daughter, but says that she ultimately needs to be the one to make the decision if she wants to be happy. The fox version of Hinako appears, and just as they are able to see eye to eye on things, the gods take hold of them and force them at each other's throats. The different versions of Hinako fight the gods that are influencing them. After the fight, Fox Mask rushes the two Hinakos to safety and apologizes. He also wants time to think it over and make sure his love for her was not just a spell. There are two interpretations for all these endings. Either there really are gods meddling with them and trying to get back at each other for hundreds of year-old feuds, or that the Tsukumogami is just a representation of Hinako's most negative, doubtful emotions, manifesting in a way that makes sense to Hinako, considering she probably knows all of the religious legends from Ebizuko-oka, and the giant's fox would be the influence of the traditions of the Fox clan, or maybe even the elders of the clan. The spell Fox Mask mentions could just be the influence and pressure from his clan to go through with the arranged marriage. At the end of this, both versions of Hinako are able to discuss what they want, even if they don't quite know what it is yet without any other influences, but she has finally come to terms with all of herself. And that is the true ending. I appreciate how all of the endings can be looked at in two ways. Either everything is representative of Hinako's inner thoughts and emotions, or that the gods really do exist and are feuding. However, personally, I didn't really like the true ending. Kind of just felt like the solution was, I just need time to think, which, I don't know, to me just doesn't really feel like a solution, but rather just pushing off a choice. I prefer the ending where she ends up with Shu. I don't know, the wiki calls that the good ending, so maybe other people agree with me. And then there's also the UFO ending, which is kind of just an Easter egg that a lot of Silent Hill games do. Really quick, my thoughts on the game and its mechanics. I enjoyed this game a lot. I know there was a lot of skepticism about the combat when trailers were first released, but I really enjoyed it, for my first playthrough at least. It is really neat that the new Game Plus does actually offer a reason to play it by expanding on the story and allowing other endings to be unlocked, but the combat was not deep enough, or maybe there wasn't enough variety in enemy types to not get a little old on the second playthrough, especially when fighting the pregnant monster for like the 15th time. On the first playthrough, I thought the game did a good job of being scary with the sound design and not knowing which enemies would attack or just stay still, but that kind of went away on the second playthrough once I had mastered the mechanics better. I really liked the visuals of the game and the enemy designs, each feeling like they had a deeper meaning, but I did wish there was a little more variety in the settings. Admittedly, it may have been hard to pull off the Ebizuko-oka portions of the game, but the Dark Shrine areas felt pretty repetitive. Also, I felt like there wasn't as much stuff to see in the environments themselves. For example, in the Silent Hill 2 remake, when you're in the hospital, you can read a lot of the posters and speculate on how they reflect James' mental state. But it didn't really feel like there was much to look closely at in the environments here. I did like the story of the game, but if I had to choose this or the Silent Hill 2 remake, I would have to choose the Silent Hill 2 remake. I prefer the scarier and more miserable feel of that game compared to the more action angle akin to something like Resident Evil 4 that I think this game goes for but slightly misses the mark. That being said, I think this is a great game and a must play for any Silent Hill or horror game fan. So, to answer the question of does this belong in Silent Hill? Well, in my opinion, yes. I think it does a great job at capturing what the Silent Hill franchise is about without just being an imitation of Silent Hill 2, even if the game doesn't take place in Silent Hill. It has the main characters' internal struggles slowly being revealed through the game, the enemies and environments being manifestations of the character's mental state and trauma, horror, and some pretty depressing circumstances for the characters involved. Pretty much everything that defines the Silent Hill franchise other than the location itself. Okay, so is it just feminist, woke, anti-marriage slop? Well, that brings me back to Barbie. The director said that as Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling were walking on the pathway in costume, random people would compliment Ryan Gosling on his outfit, but no one was saying anything to Margot Robbie. Because of her extreme views, she took this as sexism, and said she wanted to represent this in the real movie. So we got the scene where Ryan and Margot are rollerblading, and everyone is nice to Ryan, but all the men catcall Margot, and one even smacks her butt. This is definitely not what happened in real life. In reality, no one said anything to Margot Robbie out of fear of being labeled sexist in the wake of the era of the Me Too movement. It was the director allowing her agenda to influence her perception of everything, and that's why we get the scene in the movie portraying what happened as some hyper-sexist fantasy. And I can't help but think of this when I see all of the people saying that this game is just feminist or woke or whatever. is the same thing the Barbie director did, but in the opposite way. The other side is so influenced by their political agenda that they can't see a woman not wanting to go into an arranged marriage without calling it feminist. I've seen this game called anti-man, anti-marriage, feminist. Usually in that type of thing, men are always portrayed as evil or incompetent, but that's not true for Silent Hill F. The women are not portrayed in a great light. Sakako is insecure, Rinko is jealous, backstabbing, and has a god complex, Hinako's mother is enabling and weak, and Junko, Hinako's sister, was docile and just followed what society wanted from her. And the men aren't all bad. Shu is a nice guy, always treating Hinako with respect, other than maybe in one of the endings. Hinako's dad, while obviously portrayed in a bad light, is redeemed a little when you understand what he's been through and see him apologizing to his daughter. Even Fox Mask is never shown to disrespect Hinako, always caring for her and protecting her, and even being understanding when she doesn't want to get married. If you're going to look at the Silent Hill F in the lens that everything is about feminism, you have to do the same thing with Silent Hill 2. Males are portrayed terribly. Eddie is a fat slob, and James is so disgusting and horny that he can't keep it in his pants long enough for his wife to go through her illness, and instead kills her. But no one points that out because it's obvious Silent Hill 2 isn't some feminist message. To me, the themes of Silent Hill F were more about coming of age, the loss of childhood, innocence, and coming to terms with the choices you face when growing up. And if it does shine a light on any sort of issue, I wouldn't say it's feminism and sexism. To me, it seemed to have more to say on mental health. I mean, you have Hinako's father abusing alcohol to mitigate his depression rather than deal with it. If you find the key to Sakugo's mailbox, you can find a letter where she is diagnosed with a mild form of autism, and that the way her parents punish her and yell at her harshly is not helping her at all. And Hinako, unable to healthfully come to her own decision, feeling pressure from everywhere else, turning to pills to numb the pain it is causing. So to answer the question, no, it's not some feminist propaganda slop. Also, there was speculation that this F in Silent Hill F was for feminism, but from the theories I've seen, I think the explanation that makes the most sense is that it is the F standing for a sort of frequency or noise, because Hinako is feeling all this noise from outside sources of what she should do with her life, but she just wants to be able to make her own decision in silence on her own. Silent Hill F was a great experience to get through, sad and depressing, shocking at times, and relatable. The combat was solid for the most part. I liked the story and characters. I wish it could have been a little more scary, but it leaves me very excited for what's to come from the Silent Hill franchise. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on this game in the comments. This is by far the biggest video I've ever tried to make and took way longer than I was anticipating. I really enjoyed the game, so it was fun to make, but if you're still here, please consider subscribing to my channel. I want to start making videos in a much more frequent cadence. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.